Tentacles? Why did it have to be tentacles?
Bayonetta is one of those franchises that I personally am surprised has made it out of the 7th generation of console gaming. Bayonetta has become the de facto mascot of Platinum Games, and she appears to be chipping away at her 9 lives at a steady pace with the announcement of Bayonetta 3 on the Nintendo Switch. The first Bayonetta was released on the PS3 and Xbox 360 in 2009. It was re-released on the Wii U with Bayonetta 2 back in 2014. Bayonetta 2 made a pretty big splash with action game fans, but unfortunately it was released exclusively on the Wii U, significantly reducing its reach. Bayonetta 2 was re-released on the Switch this year, and you can download the re-release of the original game as well. I dusted off my Wii U and decided to play through both games. Let's do some work. When I think of Bayonetta's first tale, one word comes to mind: confidence. The tale of an amnesiac witch isn't all that interesting. The characters and the scenarios are. I mean, just look at this stuff. It screams fun. The game does an excellent job of being innocently naughty, sort of like when kids are having fun being bad. There's no harm in the mischievousness.
The reality of
Cheshire, look.
Oh, I'm looking.
This fun extends to the cast as well, with one exception. The game drags in the third act and it tries to make a statement. Needless to say, it falls flat.
Seriously, don't you? But it's all diarrhea of the mouth, if you ask me.
Bayonetta 2 tries to inject some seriousness to the story, but in my book, Bayonetta is at its best when it's irreverent. In both cases, the game stories are serviceable, but they are definitely in service to the gameplay.
Well, you don't need me to explain the finer points of fucking shit up, do you?
When you talk about the best action games in the 3D era, games such as Devil May Cry, God Hand, and Ninja Gaiden immediately come to mind. In that same breath, you could mention Bayonetta. At first I felt her control was very different from a Dante or a Ryu Hayabusa, but the more I played, the more I was reminded of an older era of gaming, mixed with modern sensibilities. Bayonetta's combo potential is huge. Much like any of the action game greats, air juggling, canceling moves, and dodging all over the screen give you the feeling of complete control over Bayonetta. If you need to practice, you can do it during the load screens, which is a nice touch. Bayonetta can assign 2 weapons, one for her arms and one for her feet. She can use different loadouts, which can be switched on the fly by pressing the right bumper. She can have 2 loadouts, allowing for some level of variety. Bayonetta's key combat strength is her dodge ability, called Witch Time. Basically, if you dodge at the last second, time will slow down, and you can land heavy damage. This has become a staple of Platinum Games. You can play the game and not dodge, but it makes it so much more difficult. Bayonetta shares its sense of speed with a game like God Hand. The action in Bayonetta is very kinetic. You need to rely on more twitch-based reactions to be successful in battle. There are torture attacks that can be used to interrupt an enemy, and allows Bayonetta to put a major hurt on opponents. Then there are Bayonetta's climax attacks, where she summons a demon to finish off bosses and the largest of Heaven's denizens. Bayonetta can pick up weapons from slain adversaries, but they only last for a short time. After completing a chapter, you're treated to a shooting gallery minigame, which allows you to buy items depending on your performance. You can take your hard-earned cash and buy upgrades. They're very expensive, and I didn't experiment much with them. While the original Bayonetta has some comparisons to the highest watermarks of action gaming, Bayonetta 2, on the other hand, finds its own voice, and comparisons to other games start to feel a bit forced. Bayonetta 2's gameplay streamlines the combat experience considerably. The Umbra gauge at the top allows you to use Bayonetta's climax powers more freely. Attacks once reserved for just climaxes have now become available whenever the meter is full. The combo system, as a result, allows for much freer interpretation. Air juggling enemies is a breeze, and new weapons give the player much more room for experimentation. While the combat in Bayonetta is very tight, it would be nothing without good enemy AI. The foes Bayonetta faces are relentless. Each one has their own timing, some of which I never fully got the hang of. Since Bayonetta goes to hell in the second game, she gets to fight demons who are completely different in fighting style from the angels she fought previously. The boss fights in Bayonetta 2 are excellent. They are challenging, and it feels like Bayonetta 2 does a good job conditioning the player for these confrontations. The only thing that I dislike about both Bayonetta games is what I dislike about many Platinum games. the quick-time events. They feel antithetical to the in-depth combat. Overall, both games play incredibly well. They both reward skill, and for the most part, they respect you as a player to get good at the game. Visually, Bayonetta has some issues with slowdown on the Wii U. While it won't impact the gameplay, it is noticeable at times. This is especially true with the last boss in Bayonetta 1. The one thing that I don't understand about Bayonetta's visuals are the few instances where the camera rotates wildly. During a rail shooter section, the dodge button makes you spin 360 degrees as well as the camera. This was tedium for me, and needless to say, I agree with the sentiment here.
I'm really beginning to hate missiles.
Otherwise, Bayonetta is a visual treat. The sepia tones of the original's color palette fit well with Bayonetta's drab, almost Soviet-style world. This adds an excellent contrast to Bayonetta's colorful character design and visual flair. The enemy designs are very original. This is especially true for the bosses. They all have cherubic faces that are honestly super creepy. Of course, the star of the show is Bayonetta, and I really like her design. Bayonetta's look still feels original almost 10 years on. Her lanky physique doesn't look proportioned, but once she starts to move, Bayonetta steals the stage. Bayonetta has some excellent choreography throughout the cutscenes. Just look at this. It exudes conviction. Bayonetta 2 sees a big improvement from its predecessor visually. Bayonetta herself has gotten a new look, and I have mixed feelings about it. I like her new outfit, but I miss her old do. The color palette has opted for more tranquil shades of blue, with hot purples and pinks instead of the deep crimson associated with the original. This makes the game feel much more visually pleasing. Additionally, there is a much brighter overall feel to the game. This saturation makes the game feel more inviting and visually interesting. One thing that both Bayonettas do is repeat assets. While I understand why Platinum opts to reuse enemies and locations in both games, I did feel like this was a tactic to artificially lengthen the game. As previously mentioned about the story, both games suffer from prolonged third acts. And perhaps a 6 or 8 hour game that's super tight would have been better than a 9 or 10 hour game that overstays its welcome just a little. The only other gripe that I have with the visuals is the overlay graphic when Bayonetta is low on HP. Since you don't regain health easily, the player may have to look at this graphic a bit too long. The sound in Bayonetta is fairly straightforward. There isn't much separation in the sound, which can be a disadvantage. Occasionally you get hit off screen without being able to sense where the attack is coming from. Since the screen gets so crowded, it would have helped to have auditory cues to precede some types of attacks. The weapons have a forceful tone, and the enemies all sound distinct, and Bayonetta's guns have a good thump to them. The clash of steel on enemies also sounds sharp, giving the player a good sense of speed. Bayonetta has a fun soundtrack. While some of the tracks aren't my sort of thing, it is upbeat. My favorite songs in the OST are the chilled out, jazzier numbers. These songs are down-tempo and give Bayonetta a sense of class that matches the titular character's own comportment and stature. The voice acting is quite good. I like Bayonetta's posh British accent. Also, Dave Fennoy plays Rodan, and he does a great job coming off too cool for school.
You bring me enough of these halos, and maybe I can buy a ticket to space. Always wanted to be a bald space marine.
There are options to play the game in Japanese, but I thought that the British accent suited Bayonetta so well it was hard to imagine her speaking Japanese. You decide.
Sorry, Enzo. This is where I get off. Say hi to the wife and kids. Enzo, 途中下車させてもらうわ。奥さんと子供たちによろしくね。
Bayonetta 1 will run you about $10 on the Xbox 360. Don't play the PS3 version. It's pretty busted. The Wii U package with both 1 and 2 will cost you about $40. The re-release on the Switch will cost you about $60, but Bayonetta 1 is only accessible via download. The first game took me about 9.5 hours to complete. The sequel took me about 14 hours, but I really didn't rush. The difficulty in Bayonetta 1 is higher than 2.
There's no such thing as luck. Only skill.
2 is still tough, but it gives you items much more often, keeping you in the battle and always giving you a fighting chance of survival. The replay value of 1 and 2 are high with unlockable costumes, skins, and higher difficulties. I especially like the costumes with the exception of the Princess Peach and Daisy outfits. They make Bayonetta look kind of gross to me. The rest are really cool, like the Samus costume, a Chun-Li type Chinese dress, and much more. I hope that in Bayonetta 3 there will be a 2B outfit from Nier Automata. Both games come with a concept art viewer, which I enjoyed poring over. If you plan on playing both of these games, play Bayonetta 1 first. It's a good game, but Bayonetta 2 is so much better. I can't see myself playing the original game again. Bayonetta 2 improves in every domain, and it would be hard to go back after playing the second game. Bayonetta 1 and 2 are a wild ride that I was surprised was so much fun to play. This is Zach with Tanuki Games. Please remember that a like, a comment, or subscribe means a lot to me, and of course, the channel. Enjoy.
Ugh.